We know that the Treasurer Bill Yan yesterday commenced his budget roadshow, announcing he's going to take action to repair what he's described as Labor's debt legacy, while continuing to pledge to protect public service jobs. Now, he's also set to remove Labor's debt cap, introducing legislation next week to the first sittings of Parliament to repeal it. He revealed yesterday that the Territory's forecast accessible borrowing for 2028-29, well, it's projected to hit $15 billion, while outlining a number of financial failures caused by the previous government, including a failure to allocate any operational funding to the Darwin Art Gallery, estimated to be at least $6 million a year, and the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Art Gallery of Australia project, which is estimated to be in excess of $10 million a year. Now, the Treasurer, Bill Yan, joins me on the line. Good morning to you, Treasurer.
Good morning, Katie, and good morning to your listeners.
Now, good to have you on the show. Bill, these blowouts are really concerning. I mean, the Darwin Art Gallery blowing out from $70 million to $143 million, while the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Art Gallery first announced at $150 million, only to blow out to $300 million. Now the CLP trying to rein that budget back into its original allocation. Treasurer, it must have been quite concerning when you took on the role and started to get a better understanding of the finances.
Yeah, look, Katie, it really was. Look, we knew sort of what we were getting into, but the more that we delved into the budget and what the previous government were doing with Territorians' money, the reality really started to set in on the actual issues that we face. And those art galleries, just a couple of instances of where funding was it was being allocated but not being managed. And then one of the big issues we found, I think, was there's all these projects and, of course, programs happening that were going to be happening for 3, 4, 5 years. But what the previous government were doing to hide the true cost and their potential, or their breach of the debt cap, which was forecast, rather than funding them for the entire time, they're only funding them year by year by year to hide that overall cost. And that's what we found, because if they actually costed all these programs that they were doing, it would have forecasted a breach of the debt cap much, much sooner. So Bill, they were hiding these numbers year on year on year on year to try and minimise or hide that they were going to breach the debt cap that they put in 2021.
So in terms of the operational blowouts, in your opinion, is it normal to forecast years in advance how much it's going to operate, for example, a new gallery?
Well, then that's the thing, Katie. Right, we'll use Adsiaga and Alice Springs as the example. Right, there was budget for $150 million. We now know that it was going to blow out to well and truly over $300 million. So they would have been borrowing $150 million to complete that project. But they knew that it was going to cost $10 million per annum operationally to run it, but never put that into a budget, never forecast that. So, of course, again, that would be money that they were borrowing. So it just goes to show some of the sneaky tactics that they were using to try and hide the actual costs and ongoing costs to Territorians for some of these projects.
So,
look at
Bill,
Tiger
do you believe
61 and now 180?
Do you believe the former government was being dishonest, or do you think they were being fiscally irresponsible?
Oh, I think certainly they were being fiscally irresponsible. You only have to see the $2 million in debt they racked up in the last 2 years leading into the election. Were they being dishonest? Look, I don't think I'd come out that harsh and say they were dishonest. I'd say they were being very, very tricky and probably hiding some of the facts from Territorians on the true state of affairs of the budget. And this is what we're finding now. It's just the blowouts and the spending that was just being done aboard in the debt cap in 2021, or they reined it in a little bit, and then it was like the drunken sailors back again. Let's just go and keep spending and keep spending and keep spending. And there's no moderation to it, Katie, and that's what we have to do now, is do that hard work. Yes, we're going to breach the debt cap. We're going to remove it because it was actually a farce at the end of the day. So we know that we have to be very, very careful with our spending, and we're going to do everything I can to make sure that we manage the economy and do our absolute and utter best to make sure that debt doesn't get out of control.
So,
We'll be
Treasurer,
spending our money wisely.
Selena Ubo joined me on the show yesterday. She said the government that you're part of's got no vision for the future and that people in Alice Springs are really concerned about the reduced budget allocation for the Aboriginal Art Gallery. Is that gallery going to be at a national standard with the decreased budget?
Well, all we've done when we look at the reduced budget, and this is the thing, Labor were just going to go and spend an extra $150 to $200 million on the gallery, and this is money they would have been putting on the credit card to no account. So we've looked at the project and gone, well, we have a budget. We have to stay within budget because this is what the previous government weren't doing. They were just doing projects, allowing to run over, and we'll just go and borrow the money. There was no accountability. So we've looked at the outgoing and, okay, what can we deliver for 150 mil? We've done a redesign of the actual gallery.
Yep.
So the actual exhibition space will only be reduced by 100 square metres.
That's still a fair amount.
Over when you're talking like 4,500 square metres, I think, for the entire project, we're losing 100 square metres of exhibition space.
Yep.
So we're able to do the exhibition space. We're changing the layout of what it looks like on the site. We've managed to keep Anzac Oval, so there's a community asset back for the use of the community again. We can deliver the Atsiaga project, and we have to do it on budget. I've been very clear with the agency is that the budget's 150 mil. It's not 300.
Yep.
It's not 350. And this is where Labor went wrong.
Look, I get it.
We have a budget, but it's
Look,
okay. We won't worry about the budget.
I totally get it. I think if you're going to renovate your home, you can't say you're going to spend $100,000 and then spend $300,000 and expect that you're able to then continue to buy groceries and do everything in the way that you have previously been doing it.
Absolutely.
I totally understand it from a real sort of normal person perspective. But how are you going to staff these two galleries now that we're going to have, and the operational costs sound like they're going to be incredibly high?
Well, and that's the thing is we now need to look at those operational costs. So if these galleries go ahead in their current format, then we now need to look at what the operational costs are and actually budget for them, and look at that holistically within the entire territory budget. Do we have? Look, we've said we're not going to be sacking any public servants. We're quarantining our frontline staff, and we may have to grow our frontline staff, but we have to maintain that watch on those non-frontline areas so we reduce that or stop that growth. But we may have to then reprioritise people from different areas into, say, working in the gallery. I can't just keep going out like Labor did and employing more and more and more public servants and putting that money on the credit card.
Bill,
we have to be responsible.
I want to power through because I've got a few things to get through and we've got such a busy hour lined up. You say that there's no long-term funding for corrections, estimated to be worth $50 million per annum just to maintain existing budget and service levels. Clearly, this cost is going to blow out. I mean, we need more infrastructure, we need more staff. How much could this blow out?
Well, we have a corrections master plan now, which does include some infrastructure, which we're working through at the moment. And again, I've been saying this for years now because I come from the industry, is that this was proven in New South Wales where their justice system collapsed because of the way that it was managed at the time. There was a huge investment in police in New South Wales, no investment in the justice system, and it fell over. And the same has happened here, and I've been saying it for years. For every dollar that you invest in the police, you need to invest $1.50 into your justice system, which is courts and corrections. That never happened. And now we see the crisis that corrections are in currently. There's a shortage of infrastructure, a shortage of beds.
Yep.
There is a shortage of staff. There's been very little investment in the courts. The courts are backlogged. So this is a direct result of that underinvestment in that sector. So we have to put money into it.
And do we know how much? Do we know how much we're going to have to put in?
Well, I think we're talking about over the next few years at least $110 million in some infrastructure projects immediately to get some things across the line to give us some bed capacity. And there will be some investment in the staff, and the Commissioner for Corrections is working through what that's going to look like at the moment.
Yep.
But we have to do it. They've been neglected for so long, and we made that commitment to keeping our community safe, Katie, and that means particularly you commit a crime, there's going to be consequences. You may end up in jail,
Absolutely.
We've seen an increase in prisoner numbers, and I said I make no apologies for that.
Bill, we're going to have to keep moving.
Apologies for keeping the community safe.
Sorry to hurry you along, mate. I'm just very conscious
right.
of time. Now, in terms of the failure to manage the IT projects, such as the Acacia IT rollout, with that's going to cost, and it looks like it's going to cost, is it right that it's an additional $61 million to date and require a further $127 million? How on earth are you going to manage to afford that?
Yeah, and that's what it's estimated to be, Katie. Again, it comes down to management of the project, and I think when you look at Acacia when it first came out, there was some very clear parameters about practices and this should be done and that shouldn't be done. Again, it wasn't managed properly from government's end. They allowed things to change, and of course that's caused those cost blowouts. And again, at the end of the day, that's placed undue issues on our frontline staff and our hospitals. So, look, it's at a point now where we've invested quite a lot in it. We're going to have to invest some more in it to get it across the line. Look, it will be good for the community overall and good for our health sector if they can get the functionality into it. But it really frustrates me that it's been allowed to blow out like this. And it
sounds as though there's a lot of factors at play here in terms of removing that debt ceiling. And that is really the path that we are on. Bill, some people listening this morning, though, they're going to be going, of course the CLP would be saying it's all Labor's fault. Of course you come into government and you're going to blame the former Labor government. I guess the big question this morning, though, is how on earth are you going to rein it back in without cutting jobs and without, making cuts?
And that's the key thing, Katie. We've got to be smarter about how we do business. Look, we need to grow our own source revenue. And that's part of the territory coordinator and cutting the red tape work that we're doing now. We need investors to get into the territory and start spending money here and helping us grow our economy, because that's one of the pathways out is our own source revenue. But we need our public sector to be more streamlined and start to work smarter too. And that work is also underway, because the public sector and those key workers and those frontline workers are the people that look after us and help us, but also help drive that investment and work with those proponents to get these projects off the line. So we definitely need our public sector on board and working with us.
So but it's about trying to get things going.
Well, it's about streamlining the public sector. I said making territory the can-do place. We make ourselves the can-do place and start to bring that investment in. Our budget is in a perilous position, but the territory economy is starting to make that turn. We're starting to see some growth in some certain areas. So it will be that own source revenue and that economic growth that will help get us out of the hole. But also we've got to do some work with the federal government too. Treasury are working on our compact with the federal government on what our GST revenue looks like. And because that has a big effect on the territory at the end of the day. So there's a number of things we're working on, and that budget repair and particularly our debt recovery will be part of the 2025 budget that we'll be releasing in the next few months.
Bill, a quick one. I'm being told that some public servants received notification that there was a miscalculation on their pays for public holidays. They're now having to be paid back. How many people impacted, and how much is that balls up going to cost?
I'm not sure exactly how many people, Katie. I know that the majority are within the health sector, and it was shift workers, and it was involving public holidays, and there was a miscalculation on their pays. My understanding, it's around about $19 or $20 million over a number of years. So this goes back quite a way. And again, I said this is a legacy issue that I'm having to deal with now. And again, these are the things that affect our bottom line and our ability to do the things that we want to do. So,
Bill,
it just seems to be one issue after another, Katie.
Yeah, it seems that way, mate. A couple of really quick listener questions. I've got one here. Good morning, Katie. Can you please ask Bill Yan, how much does the government spend on patient travel for medical assistance that our hospital cannot provide?
I wouldn't have that figure off the top of my head, Katie. I'm happy to take that one on notice and get that number back to you. But yeah, off the top of my head, I wouldn't have that.
No, that's all right. We will definitely follow that up. Another one come through from a local contractor who says that he's doing it tough. It says, "Good morning, Katie. Can you ask the Honourable Bill Yan when the CLP government will meet with the local civil contractors to discuss the issues within Dipple? We cannot even get meetings after multiple requests. We hope the CLP will be reasonable."
Yeah, well, look, I've met with, I think, some of the peak bodies for the civil contractors, and I've met with our department. I've given a commitment pretty well to the peak bodies that I'll meet with them quarterly to discuss the issues. I'm happy to sit down with anyone, Katie, and have a chat, but I know I'm doing a huge piece of reform work, and so is Louise McCormack, the new CE in DLI, to change how we're doing business within DLI. I want the communication from DLI out to our contractors and our proponents to be better and both ways. The key to achieving good outcomes within government is good communication, and that's between our departments and the people that do that work for us, our contractors and other proponents. So it's a piece of work I know Louise is working on. I'd like to hopefully give assurances to the person that's called in that those communication lines will be opening up, because that's a key priority for me as part of that reform for DLI.
Bill, just very quickly, I mean, you've described the budget being in a perilous position, and said that we are in a difficult spot right now. Can you just guarantee to our listeners, though, that despite that, and despite the fact that we really need to get some movement into the Northern Territory in terms of major projects, that you're not going to be sort of, going overboard and crossing boundaries when it comes to the environment, or, selling off assets and cutting jobs and doing all the things that the former CLP Giles government did?
I can give you that guarantee, Katie. We won't be doing that. And the territory coordinator stuff has been, I suppose, interesting in the fact that everyone seems to think that we're going to bypass all of these regulations. These regulations exist, and what the territory coordinator is there to do is to make sure that the departments and agencies meet their timeframes. That's the key part. We don't want to have to go in and make those decisions. The territory coordinator doesn't want to have to do that. We want our departments and agencies working quickly and efficiently to make the decisions that they need to do, so the territory coordinator can get on with driving investment and attracting investment to the territory. So we're not about to bypass I said all these different laws. We're not about to sell off assets and bits and pieces. But the one thing I will say, Katie, is that there's some things that the government can't do and don't do well. And that's where we want to get the private investment and private industry and proponents to come in and work with us. So we're working up some stuff now around proposals from the private sector to come and work with government to help us grow the economy and grow the territory, because sometimes the private sector can do it better than us, and sometimes we shouldn't be in that marketplace, because the government doesn't have to be everything. That's why we have the private sector out there. And if we're providing the right environment, we will see that private sector investment start to flow into the territory. And Bill, that's certainly what we want to see.
We are going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Treasurer. Bill Yan, the Treasurer of the Northern Territory. Thanks, mate.